One of the biggest pieces of karmic debt we're learning to let go of now is lack consciousness. So specifically looking in at the idea when we're talking about power over versus hopefully transitioning into power with, there is lack consciousness that is connected to this idea of power over, wherein if you believe that you're separate from your source, you also believe that you lack what you need. And so that sense of lack, that's what creates a lot of competitiveness, overconsumption, the things that kind of can lead way to suffering in this world. So one of the transitions that we're making, one of the big ones that we're being pointed towards right now, is a long-term shift out of lack consciousness, where we're being guided to heal lack consciousness and come to the spiritual realization that in truth, we are one with infinite abundance because we are one with the divine creator source, and we have the ability to experience infinite abundance now.
Sarah Hall, welcome on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
Wow, what a great question. And first off, thank you so much for having me. I have to say right now, I'm very excited for the present moment to get to talk to you and have this conversation. But if we're kind of looking at sort of like a bigger bird's eye view of what really sparks passion in my heart right now, it's seeing all of the change that's going on in the world and how there seems to be such a shift in awareness around our way of life, particularly towards unity. So every time I see instances in which people become a little bit more aware of our interconnectedness, that brings me passion, that brings me joy, and that lights a fire under me to share what I share and to do what I do in the world.
And I love that you're so attuned with the planetary movements that we're seeing throughout the ages. And I've heard you call this that humanity is moving through the great harmonization, as you said, moving toward that unity, that harmony, that peace. Looking from a bigger scope, like a bigger picture, what in the planetary sense are we moving through currently? Which, just to get a context of where we're at, I feel like these are times that we've never lived before in human history. What is going on in terms of the planetary movements that is creating such a great shift?
Yes. So I have a bit of a unique perspective on this. While I'm not an astrologer, I can't necessarily claim that title because I feel like people who have studied astrology to the fullest and who really are astrologers have forgotten more than I'll know about astrology. But I do know a few things. And what I like to do with my understanding of planetary movements and that kind of thing is communicate with my angels and my guides and look to get a perspective on what's currently going on in terms of these collective shifts. So I'll preface this with this first thought here. A lot of people say, okay, if we're looking at like astrological shifts or what's happening up in the sky, does that mean that we don't have free will? Is there something about, these intergalactic movements, we could say, that are determining life on Earth, predetermining? And if so, I've heard a lot of people say, I don't know if I like that, or I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Well, my answer to that is no, not at all. Not at all. My perspective, my understanding so far from what I've learned in working with my angels and looking to understand this stuff a little bit better over time, is that we can think of the sky almost like a mirror. So it's a mirror that's reflecting back something that's going on at a deeper conscious level for us as human beings, both at an individual level. You can find, I think, truth there in that particular mirror, and also at a collective level. Now, there's one particular idea that I think ties into this idea of like harmonization and moving towards a consciousness that more greatly is aware of unity, that many astrologers have talked about, and I just find interesting. And it is the idea that we're about to move through what is called the Photon belt, and that every several thousand years, it's said that our galaxy will move through this thing called the Photon belt, which is this belt of incredible light. And it is thought, or it's believed, it's presumed, that this belt of light contains within it this incredible encoded spiritual wisdom and information that typically tends to trigger conscious beings, like human beings like ourselves, to awaken or shift to the next level of consciousness. Now, I find that very interesting because essentially in the work that I do with my angels and guides, what they have communicated is that, well, yes, humanity currently is taking a significant step forward in terms of our spiritual evolution, the evolution of our consciousness. And a big part of that is that our light bodies are currently in the midst of shifting. They're in the midst of evolving, expanding out, which enables us to open up and to be aware of the higher partials of our consciousness, or the spiritual aspects of our consciousness that connect us with one another and with all the different conscious forces of life. So the interesting thing about the planets in terms of that light body shift, that rise into higher consciousness, is that according to the angels, through different astral bodies that are, sort of like up there in the heavens, our sun, for example, being the perfect example of this, source energy is able to flood through into our planet, almost as if we could say that, we'll go back to the example of the sun, that our sun is almost like a magnifying lens, that through the light, it's sort of amplifying that heat and that light, right? And then we've got this concentrated medicinal dose of light and information that's coming in, and it's helping to upgrade the energetic body of the Earth itself, the planet Earth itself, and all of her inhabitants. So that includes us as well. So yeah, from a planetary sense, all I can really say with full knowing humbly, because I feel like there's so much out there that I cannot yet say that I fully know, but what I can humbly say is that it seems that absolutely everything is connected, and that there is absolutely a way to use our view of the universe as a mirror into something greater that's happening within us right now.
And if consciousness operates on stages, let's say, or levels, what is the level or stage of consciousness that humanity is moving from and toward right now at this time, while we're moving through this photon belt and receiving all these codes?
Yes, that's a great question. So I'm going to share two things. First, a little bit of what I already know based on what I've learned from working with my angels on this so far. And then I'm also just going to ask and see if we can intuitively get a little more information on that now, because I've never asked that question in that exact way before. So I'm curious to kind of open it up and see what else would come through about that. So first, to start with what I know is here. Currently, there seems to be a huge karmic shift that we're undergoing, wherein we are moving from a consciousness that is much more dominated by a fear-based way of seeing and being, based on the illusion of being completely separate from one another, from God or from the source, from the universe, right? That state of illusory state, we could say, of separation creates a mindset of fear, because if we're not connected to anything, then it's sort of like, ooh, it's me against the world, so we have to use almost this fear-based consciousness to feel like we're surviving and getting by in this world. And right now there's this this is what I know so far, is that we're in the middle of this karmic bloom, this karmic healing process where we are shedding out, we're dealing with and we're shedding out a lot of that fear-based stuff so that we can move into a consciousness that sees and understands the truth a little bit more clearly. And that truth would be essentially that we are united. We are one. We are connected with one another. We are connected with the source of this universe. We are connected with all of nature. That includes this planet. That includes the whole of the universe around us. So now I want to just tune into my angels and say, hey, could you add anything to this for us?
Some help here.
Yes. I'd like to know a little bit more clearly, just a little human here. So tuning in now, actually, it's interesting because I'm seeing them in my mind's eye, underlining the word karma specifically, as if to unpack this concept with us a little bit more fully right now. And it's interesting because as we're doing that, they're communicating that karma, first off, has nothing to do with rewards or punishments for good or bad behavior. It's not necessarily about morality in that way. It's more of an immune system. So we could think of it as a neutral force, a non-judging neutral force that moves through the human collective like the immune system moves through our own physical bodies, so that if you caught a virus or had an infection of some kind, you'd have white blood cells that rushed to the site of the infection or the wound, and it would clean it up and keep you safe and healthy and balanced and clear. They're telling us that karma is basically the same thing. It's like an immune system, so it's an energy that keeps us functioning in a state of unity and balance and harmony. So we've got this karmic energy, this beautiful force that helps function with our united state that we're in. We're in this united conscious state, our whole entire, human race is. And when we live from a consciousness or act from a consciousness that does not create harmony for the whole of the human race. So let's say we do something that isn't good for ourselves or good for other people around us, then like white blood cells, that karmic energy is rushing in. They're showing me this white light, this purifying energy just rushing in and helping to cleanse that, helping to heal that, helping to rebalance that situation. So if we ourselves are the ones that are holding, let's say, that consciousness that created the imbalance in the first place, or that challenging, painful, kind of experience in the first place, then it's through we ourselves that purifying light comes in. And sometimes it can be momentarily challenging or painful as we are cleared of these things, or as we step through lessons that invite us to clear ourselves, to see or perceive differently so that we can go back to a more united state of consciousness. But it's all good for us. So even if it's uncomfortable, they're saying it's all good for us. So now they're saying, let's zoom out. This is where the whole collective is right now. It's that we're in this sort of long-term karmic lesson, this karmic purging and healing and cleansing. There's a lot of good that's happening in the world, a lot of blooming into the new that's happening, but we have to address that there's also a lot that we are letting go of, that we're purging out and that we're clearing at the same time. So what the angels are telling us is that, yes, there is a very powerful opportunity that we're standing in alignment with right now as a whole human collective, and that we can align with this incredible light. They're telling us, by the way, this is not the first time that this powerful new wave of light has come to this planet. It's been here before, it'll be back. It's something that cycles through. And each time we have the option to move together into this heightened state of awareness where we have the ability to manifest more peace, more balance, more unity, and more harmony, not only with each other, but also with the planet itself, with Mother Earth itself. They are telling us that free will is important, though. So we are choosing this, and we're in the middle. This is why they started with karma. They're saying we are doing the work now to build that conscious foundation, essentially. And they're excited and joyful and hopeful because there are so many human beings who are bringing in that light, becoming a temple of it for the, their lives, their bodies, right? Their consciousness is becoming like a temple for that new light, and they're allowing that new light or new wave or state of consciousness to shift and uplift them into the consciousness of love, which is the simplest way to describe what this invitation is right now. It is an invitation for humanity to rise into the consciousness of love, individual by individual, and then hopefully that tips the scales and we create a new value system as a collective.
Beautiful. And underlying the word free will now, is there a possibility to align the human's free will or humanity's free will as a collective with the free will of Mother Earth and God's divine will, Source's divine will, toward that evolution, toward that ascension?
Ooh, that's such a great question. So as soon as I heard you ask that question, I got this beautiful tingle in my heart center area. Sometimes I call it my angel bumps. Like I get little goosebumps, little tingly feelings, my angel bumps. And usually I get that sensation when we've just hit on some important truth. And right away, their answer to this, because I'm letting them kind of collaborate with us on this, right, is, well, yes. They're saying, yes, yes, yes. That is exactly the process that we're undergoing. And that's a beautiful way to see it, to express it, is that this is about aligning our human free will, which is so creative and so powerful, with the divine will, which includes the will of the planet, the will of the universe, the harmony that holds all of creation in its harmonious flow state. So we're learning to rise into that, but doing it again with free will, not just as a default, not just sort of as like, oh, well, you have no choice and you're just going to fall into this harmony, because there are forms of consciousness that exist that are in that state, a very innocent state where it's just this pure state of flowing with the flow and there's no other option, right? But for us, we are awake. We are truly fractals of God or fractals of the creator mind because we have this amazing free will. And with this awakened choice, we're plugging this awake, aware consciousness into the divine will. So free will and divine will are looking to match. And then as they align and match, the angels are showing us that there's this incredible creative act that occurs, almost like this bloom of creative energy that just flows through us very, very powerfully. So that's exactly what we're doing. Very, very exciting to put it that way. Thank you.
Yeah. And, going a little bit deeper there, in the moments where we're outside of that flow with our own, our own free will versus God's divine free will, how do the angels then view something such as resistance when we feel a resistance to create that match or create that alignment?
Yes. So they like to teach us that we can think of this quite simply. It's all down to fear or being in a state of love. So if we were to go back to, all right, what is the highest divine will of the universe? What's God's will? What's the creator's will? What's the divine mind's will? It's love, period. The thing that we recognize as human beings as love is probably the thing that we prize the most, the thing that we think is the most, just the pinnacle state of consciousness to be in. It's our reason for existing here. It's the main thing that inspires us and drives us forward is love. But we're slowly going to come to realize, according to the angels, that this thing we call love, that we can see maybe the tip of the iceberg of right now, is in truth the very presence of God. It is the will of God. It is the exact truth, the magic behind the entire expansion of creation, the expansion of the universe. So what they're telling us is that when there's resistance, typically it is because there's a part of us that's in fear. And they say this with incredible compassion towards us, by the way. They're saying, we understand. It's okay. It's human. It's only normal, only natural to be in a state of fear, sometimes in a state of resistance against uniting with that power. And they're saying, here's why. and they're actually showing me a little image in my head to help, kind of describe this. So I'll describe this the best way that I can. They're showing me an image of a light that is incredibly bright and big and powerful. And they're reminding me right now that there are many ancient prophets and masters that would sometimes describe God, or like the presence of God, as being like the infinite, unconditioned, eternal light, the light of 10,000 suns. So it kind of reminds me of that idea of this unconditioned light of 10,000 suns. So we're seeing that, and it's love. It's basically, what we would call love. When we bring our identity, our selfhood, our sense of everything that we know from our human vantage point up in front of this incredible, powerful source and wellspring of divine light, they're saying it is natural to fear, because what happens when we come near it is that everything that is not love within us, anything that was ever not love, immediately dissolves and becomes love. It almost looks as if it burns up, or it is severed from us in this really powerful way. They're saying this is why in the myth of the Garden of Eden, an angel is depicted to be at the gate. So it's like you'll go back to Eden, but there's this angel with this sword that doesn't only cut, but it's also a sword of fire. So it burns, meaning it cuts and burns away everything in you that is not in the consciousness of truth. Every bit of ego, every bit of pain, every bit of suffering, every bit of illusion based on this concept of being separate is cut and burned and dissolved and cleared away. So it is only normal that when we approach the light of the source, the light of the divine, that normally, there's, for most of us, I mean, myself included, I've experienced it. There's going to be a little bit of resistance that we'll experience, that we'll feel when we come close to that sometimes. And the reason why is because there's just this part of us that goes, I don't know if I'm ready to let go. I don't know if I'm ready to have that part of me die. Who am I if this piece of self that I've always identified as being this solid piece of self that I thought I knew to be me, who am I if it dissolves, if it's burned away, if it clears? There is the unknown on the other side. There is the unknown, and that unknown is incredibly powerful. To give yourself, to surrender yourself to the unknown and to this infinite, incredible power, is basically to give up the ego entirely, because the ego likes to think that it has some sense of being in control, having some sense of power or say over what our reality is and that kind of thing. So they're saying the resistance simply comes from that normal human piece of us, and they address that with incredible compassion, and they invite us to address that part of ourselves with incredible compassion too, and to hold faith, to build our faith as much as possible, to understand that we can trust our movement into greater unity with that light, or that true seeing, that true consciousness.
And in order not to fall back into that fear, you've said that one of the biggest misconceptions that we need to debunk right now is this concept of that there's going to be a split of two earths, and the people that are spiritual and ascended are going to be on one, and the ones that aren't are going to be on the old earth. I would love to debunk that right now, and why you've said that no one is left behind in the new earth.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. I think that is one of the most important messages that we could spread when we're talking about New Earth, simply because there are many people that maybe have been taught the opposite. And the truth is, we as human beings, our very nature is unity. And that's kind of where we started this thread of conversation, is talking about how the shift that we're going into is one where essentially we're awakening to more of our unity. We're becoming more aware of the fact that we are one. We are one and we are indivisible. So it is literally impossible, according to the angels, for there to be any soul that is left behind, for there to be a split where some people stay in some sort of like old earth that is, apocalyptic and painful and scary and hellish, versus people that are like holier than thou, really spiritual, who get to go to this better reality. In fact, that's a little bit of a trick of the ego. I've got to call it out for what it is, because ego, it loves to twist even the purest and best, most loving concepts in the world. It will take the purest thing in the world and it will try to twist it around to its opposite. That's just part of its nature, part of what it does. So for one on the spiritual path to say, well, if I'm more spiritual, if I say the right things, do the right things, if I meditate, if I put myself in this other mindset, right, then I get to go to this higher reality. It's ego all over again, creating more and more of its concept of separation. It's spreading and trying to re-entrench you in that idea of the illusion of being a separate self. It's trying to hold you in that separateness. And according to the angels, basically a big part of us moving into a new level of consciousness or towards a new earth is we're realizing we are all one and that we literally all belong to one another. So while there is, war in one corner of the planet, there's war inside your own heart in some way. While there is hunger in one person's belly, there's hunger in yours. We are literally all in this together. And so when we think of what the angels brought forward when they mentioned karmic healing a moment ago, and how that's like the big thing that's happening right now, live, right in front of us in the world, that is this process of moving into healing that very gradually is helping to uplift and unify all so that we can rise into a different spectrum of consciousness. By the way, the angels are underlining the word spectrum for us right now. And they're saying, so it's not as if with New Earth, we're thinking like, we're going to snap our fingers and then all of a sudden it's heaven on earth. Everything's perfect. There's never going to be another problem ever again. You never have to learn another lesson. No. Earth is still a school. Earth is still this powerful, amazing, famous plane of being where you can go and you can experience duality, which is one of the most valuable things in the universe. It's the human experience. The Earth experience is famous across the whole universe, according to the angels, because you can come here, experience duality. And so you can have contrast. You can have, light and dark, hot and cold, all the contrasts that are here. And this sculpts you. There's nothing quite like experiencing duality that evolves you and shapes you and transforms and awakens you to the presence of the creator source within you. So Earth will still be that. Earth will still have duality. It's still going to be an Earth school. It's still going to be the amazing place that we know it to be for growth and evolution. But the spectrum, the frequency range of consciousness is about to shift a little bit. So if we have, over 7 billion people on the planet who are within this range of vibration where consciousness tends to inhabit, and we could say maybe at one end of the spectrum, there's suffering, there's, separation consciousness. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there's joy, there's love, there's unity consciousness and that kind of thing. Well, we can fall anywhere along that range, and any individual can be anywhere along that range at any time. You can travel around that range of consciousness that we're all helping to anchor and share on this planet together. Part of what's happening as we're shifting into a new Earth is we're just moving the frequency range up a little bit. So it's like we still have the ability to reach these lower notes. It's just that we're going to have the majority of human beings, our 7 billion plus family, moving into a range where we're singing in this little bit more harmonic frequency range that just gives us a little bit of a higher sense of our belongingness to one another, that sense that we are in this together, we belong to one another, we are here to literally walk each other home into pure union.
Beautiful. And school is a very broad term that we can go really deeper into there, because when I think of school, I could either be talking about kindergarten, elementary, university, master's degree. In the terms of what lessons are we learning in this new iteration of Earth as the same school, but with different ranges of frequency, what new lessons, what more advanced lessons maybe, are we beginning to be able to learn if we choose to come down to this school that is changing, that is upgrading in its frequency? What type of lessons change from just like the sense of duality, contrast, learning through fear, learning through this or that, yin and yang? What is the new lessons that are coming in the new Earth?
Yes. So when I ask the angels this question, they are giving one word to introduce their answer: thrive. They're saying the new lesson, or the new range of lessons, we could say, is all centered around the concept of thriving, of what it is to thrive. So for a long time, if we think of being in separation consciousness, at least for the last several thousand years of history that we can remember and track, what we see is a human species who is sort of in this fear-based struggle to survive and this attempt to place power over the earth and one another. So if it's, I'm afraid I won't have enough, so I'm going to overconsume, I'm going to cut down more trees than I need and have so much wood that I'll hopefully then be safe, and then convince myself I'm unified with some sense of love and safety and peace, right? Or, again, I have such fear, right, or sense of separation, right, that I could try to dominate or take from another group of people over here, and, then will I try to find my sense of safety, my sense of unity, my sense of love, and my sense of well-being. Well, the angels are saying with great love and compassion for us that every step that we've ever taken in that old consciousness was a desire for God. It was all essentially us reaching out for love, reaching out to put a Band-Aid on that wound of separation consciousness. And they're telling us that the shift that we're headed towards right now, that we're literally building brick by brick through all of this intense healing work that we're all doing all around the world right now, generation by generation, is we're stepping into a consciousness that instead of it having to be about surviving with power over, it can be about thriving and power with. So it's a transition from power over to power with. And that means that we'll be making incredibly great discoveries. They see this in our potential, that we have the ability to make incredibly powerful discoveries about how to live with our planet, with Mother Nature, with the whole of the web of life in such a way that supports an incredible what feels to me, just feeling the energy of it, because I can't really see it or conceptualize it, but I can feel it. What feels to me like incredibly technologically advanced, privileged lifestyle for everyone. They're saying even now, by the way, you all have the ability to eradicate things like, hunger and war. It just takes a shift in consciousness to get there. The earth can support you all right now. She's ready to do that. You've got the ability to do that. So when we shift, as we're now working on shifting that consciousness, we tap in to our incredible human innovative ingenuity and creativity, this brilliance that we have, which is really a brilliance that taps into the mind of God, not just our own mind. It's, part of the mind of God. And it comes up, this intelligence we have within us comes up with a way of living in the world that is all about expanding the level of thriving that we can experience by having power with one another. We're more powerful when we empower each other, in other words, and we're more powerful and we thrive better when we empower the web of life, when we experience a powerful flow that moves with instead of against nature. So from that state of thriving, the angels are communicating that here's what's, again, just written in the potential. This is one timeline that we could choose that we're, again, in the midst of hopefully working on. And it's that we have this potential to create a global civilization that, first off, yes, is peaceful. Secondly, yes, make sure that everyone's provided for. And then because we have at least that baseline of well-being there, that's just the base, that's like kindergarten right there. Just to have that lesson of we can be at peace and we can all be fed and provided for. Okay, we've got the ability to do that. From there, we build. We have the ability to build and really discover God as self, God united with self, where we can make creations that I think may right now be a little beyond our imagining and fathoming, but the angels are saying they are glorious and they are beautiful. And this is our own way of expanding the literal consciousness of God, of being the consciousness of God by creating more from that first baseline of just peace and basic well-being on the planet. So we're headed towards that first, it looks like, hopefully.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
What can we learn from the way that the angels show up in their power? Because you said that there's this ongoing theme in the collective recently about our relationship with power. You said not power over, but power with. What can we learn by the way that an angel would walk in their power and maybe embody that for ourselves in these physical vessels as well?
Yes. Oh, that's such a great question. So angels are beings whose consciousness is essentially exactly where we as human beings are headed, which is a consciousness of pure love. Except we're going to add a little bit of an extra dimension to that because we also have this incredible free will, which is a little bit different than the state of their consciousness. But basically, to best understand them, we just have to put into our head the idea of these are beings with pure love emanating through absolutely every particle of consciousness and awareness that they hold within them. So really that means that their power is true power. True power is love. The only true power in the universe is what we could call God's power, if you tend to like that term, God. You could use any word you want to call it, but power is love. Love is the only true power in the universe. So their great power is to hold love that's so strong that when you connect with them, it actually starts to melt away. Again, like we were talking about with that idea of the light of 10,000 suns, it starts to melt away very gently, very, very softly, the things in you that are not love, which helps you to unite with your power as well. So to stand in our true power is really quite a humble state because it's not power over. It is power that says, all right, I'm sourcing power from within me, meaning my power doesn't come from something external. It doesn't come from having more material possessions than another person next to me. It doesn't come from enforcing my will over someone else externally. It's not from any of these external conditions that we might be able to seek or measure outside of us. To hold the power like the angels' power, to live by their example, would basically be to say, God is inside of me now and always. My heart is right now a pure, open fountain for the presence of God. So inside of the heart of every human being on the planet, you have your own direct personal doorway that literally in every second of your life is always leading right back to the heart and source of this universe. It's leading back to the highest and purest intelligence that exists and the greatest power that exists. So when we tune into that and we radiate that love from within, this is how we start to create a real life of empowerment. Because if we live from that true power, basically that true knowledge that everything we need, everything that we've ever sought, we're already one with right now, it puts an end to a lot of the things that create that ego-based suffering in life. It creates a unification wherein there's a sense of peace and trust and faith and flow for each area of life, because we know that even if something doesn't look like what the ego would label as good, even if something looks like what the ego would be afraid of, that in the end, it's probably all part of a higher and greater divine harmony, and that it's literally okay, it's literally safe to allow and to trust everything. To be in that state of faith really is to be in a state of power, because if you hold that consciousness, which is really, again, a consciousness of faith, consciousness that's connected to love, then what you look at with the eyes of love becomes love. We already do this all the time. I recently saw, for example, like a video on the internet of this poor little dog that was, like living on the street and, sick and had maybe been abused and was really afraid of people. The dog at first was very resistant to other human beings, was baring its teeth, trying to snap and that kind of thing. But basically these rescuers were relentless in being loving to this sweet little dog and just kept taking care of him, healing him, feeding him, loving him, showing him gentle hands, gentle, soft, loving voices, love, 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 met with that resistance and that fear and that pain every moment. And then eventually, by the end of the video, they showed this sweet little dog and its true personality came out. It was happy. It was loving. It was sweet. It was just like any dog you would meet that just loves on everybody. And so that's the true power. That's the power of the angels, is they're in this state of relentless love that eventually breaks everything down and turns it back into love. And we have the ability to do the same thing by just relentlessly holding that connection to the love source within.
Beautiful. I have a question for you, but I'm just going to plug in my battery real quick. I just realized I got the notification.
Oh, yeah. No worries.
1 second. Yeah, it hasn't happened in a minute.
Yeah.
All right, let me tune into what you were saying about the heart. I've heard you say before that heart-based bonds are going to be what births in the new world and the new earth. What do you think holds us back from creating those heart-based bonds with other people around us?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And first off, it's so true that yes, as we're moving into this new partial of consciousness, that it is about heart-to-heart human connections. This is the thing that makes us thrive the most. So if we're talking about moving from a world of surviving to thriving, of power over to power with, yes, it means we're going to be connected more at the heart. And the thing that can create blockages there, challenges there, is typically when throughout our whole lives, because most of us have been conditioned towards this from childhood, or have experienced a wound somewhere along the way on our human journey that taught us to put up a wall, around our heart and say, it's not safe for me to connect, because my consciousness remembers a time when I was wide open, vulnerable, innocent, connected, right? And then someone let me down, or someone abandoned me, or someone hurt me in some way. So we learn to put up these walls. When I've worked with the angels before about this very thing, they boil it down to defense and attack. Defense and attack. Those are the two modes of the ego. And really, defense and attack are kind of the same thing at the end of the day to me when I really think about it for myself. But that's essentially what the ego wants to do, is it wants to defend itself from a perceived external harm, some source outside of itself that it thinks might break it down and destroy it. And it also wants to be on the offensive too. It wants to attack sometimes as well, in order to preemptively, again, protect what it thinks is its own, what it thinks is its safety. Usually the ego is wrong about what it thinks its safety is. So ego might say, for example, I believe that my safety is when other people have a good opinion about me. I'm safe when other people think well of me, because if they think well of me, then they're not going to judge me and abandon me and hurt me, right? But it's wrong, because really the source of our safety is infinite and unconditional. It's the infinite, unconditioned, eternal light. It is the love that's inside of us. That is our true source. So when we put up walls of defense or outposts of attack around our heart, right? This is what prevents us from being able to make a natural heart-to-heart connection with another person. So I really believe that a part of this sort of like karmic healing, karmic awakening, is that whether we're doing this at an individual level or whether we're doing it at like a bigger, collective level, or a little bit of both probably, is we are here to break down those old walls. We're here to break down the judgments, the attachments, the defenses, the attacks that we've used in the past in an attempt to try and keep ourselves safe, falsely safe, we could say, which is really the ego protecting its separateness, which is not good for us in the end. And as we break those things down, as we do the inner work to forgive those things, to heal those things, to break those things down, then we actually return back to our normal, natural, default human state, which you can see so easily if you are around little children. Like if you walk into a preschool or a daycare center or like a playground where you've got a bunch of like 2 and 3-year-olds, they are pretty wide open hearted. Yeah, they have their little moments where they can squabble a little bit, but oh my gosh, for the most part, these are hearts that are wide open. They are ready to easily connect and find a pure bond of love with another human at any minute. Their heart is just open, available, and ready for love at any moment. And that's kind of how we're most healthfully designed to interact. It's to have connection. And all that connection really is from heart to heart is there's love. In other words, there's God's substance flowing from my heart into your heart and from your heart into my heart, which then makes it bigger. It makes it easier for both of us to amplify the signal of our own connection to that God presence inside of each of us. And then that spreads out. It sends this bigger signal out into the world. And then we feel nurtured. We feel fulfilled when we do that. So I love that you asked that, because I think that that's like the task right now is for us to break down those walls.
Yeah, especially when we're moving through so much energy from this solar maximum, solar cycle 25, we're getting all these solar flashes. That is inherently causing our body to shift as well with the new frequencies. And you mentioned a little bit about the light body activations toward the beginning. What causes people to resist or shut off those activations that are going on around them? How can we even know that we're going through them in the first place? I know you've talked about a few of the symptoms that we can experience when we're going through these light body activations. How do we not allow ourselves to shut it down, allow ourselves to move through it, and even know how it's going on in the first place?
That's such a great question. And actually, this is one that I have asked my favorite guide, Archangel Michael, about many
That's
times
my boy.
before. Yes! Oh my gosh. From day one, as soon as I stepped onto this path, that's been my favorite angel. Oh, so Archangel Michael has helped me with better understanding this over time. And many times he has communicated to me that basically that resistance, that we might hold, like if we're strongly attaching to something that, let's say, does not match up with this light body shift that we're undergoing, or this consciousness shift that we're undergoing, it's the resistance that creates the negative symptoms. It's the attachment to the old thing. It's the old way of being, which is now defunct and no longer working for us, that creates the discomfort. As soon as we surrender, let go of whatever it is that we need to let go of. So in some cases, that can literally be something in our diet, something in our lifestyle, right? That makes us a little bit more of an optimal match for allowing these shifts to occur through us. Once we let go of what we need to let go of and just surrender and go with the flow, it gets easier. It gets more comfortable. These shifts don't, in other words, according to Archangel Michael, have to feel so painful or so challenging or so symptomatic for us. If they are highly symptomatic, then that's a great moment to kind of tune in and ask, okay, what is it that I need to let go of? What is it that I need to clear so that I can just move into a state of ease and match with this and align with these shifts that are happening right now. The angels are also adding in the message too, and I love this. This is really comforting. They're saying that in the same way that you can't stop the spring from blooming in the forest, you can't stop the light body activations and changes, the evolution that's going on for us energetically, collectively, and individually right now. You can't stop it. It's like, you might go out into the woods one day and you see these little, I know in like the early spring, I love to see these little snow crocuses that come out, these little tiny flowers that are so resilient that they pop right through the ice, right through the snow. To me, that is like the sign of hope. That is just such a beautiful spiritual symbol, the snow crocus. And then once you see the snow crocus, after a few weeks, just it's undeniable. You're not going to be able to stop it. You're eventually going to see all of these other signs of spring that are coming. You couldn't stop it. You couldn't resist it if you tried. Eventually the sun comes out, the buds come out on the trees, everything starts turning green, and then we've got this mass blooming that occurs all around us. So whatever phase one might be in terms of that light body shift, that frequency shift, which again, it influences our spiritual light body and our physical body, as you said, yes. You can't really stop it. It's going to happen, and either it's going to happen maybe uncomfortably, which might make it happen what might feel like a little bit more slowly, or it can happen a little bit more easily and a little bit more quickly. You get to have, free will choice and work with this, dance with this, move with this change, so that we can hopefully let go of, again, what we need to let go of, align with the things that are really going to support us maintaining this new vibration of being, and just hold it comfortably.
Mm-hmm. You've talked also about the equinoxes and how they're also spiritual symbols of rebirth and death. And, us just a few weeks ago going through the September autumn equinox, you've said that this sets the tone for the next 3 months of the year. And it's also giving us a little glimpse of what's to come for the following year, 2025. Based on this equinox that we just had, all the full moon eclipses, all these things that are going on that we've had, what is the tone that is being set for the next coming months and what we're heading into for the new year?
Yes. Oh, that's such a great question. So first off, you're totally right. Basically, the equinoxes are when Mother Earth's energy body blooms open. So just as a human's body goes through cycles and rhythms and that kind of thing, we've got these different modes of being that we're in. There's a time to be awake, a time to be sleeping, a time to be active, a time to be resting and digesting, these different phases, these different solar moments, we could say, throughout the year mark a shift in her entire light body and energy body, and of course physical body too, obviously. But yeah, during the September equinox, what we got was this big bloom for the spiritual energy body of Mother Earth, wherein this powerful dump, like a download of energy, came in, which was medicinal and very purgative. That's what came in very, very strongly around the September equinox. So imagine like a type of medicine that might be, a purgative type of medicine. It's like there literally to help you to purge out and to get rid of the toxins. It's there to help you to clear something out of you. That's the type of energy that we welcomed in so strong, or that's at least the way that this powerful source light code energy interacted with us, because we're in a harmonic phase where that's exactly what we needed. That's the light became when it became one with us. It became the exact medicine we needed. It became a purgative force. And so ever since that time, we've had this sort of acceleration of intense releasing and a lot of intense facing off with the illness that we are here to purge right now. So meaning we're facing off with our ego, we're facing off with pain and suffering a little bit more, just depending on where you are in your path. There might be this sense of like, there's something I've got to address and let go of. And depending on the individual and the path that you're on and the work that you've already done, you can experience that at varying different degrees, right? That can look very different from one human being to another. But what it's forecasting, because it is giving us a little glimpse of what 2025 is going to be like. It's like a little seedling that's like, this is what 2025 is going to be like. It too will be a time where we will likely see many phases of purging, many phases of clearing. And interestingly, a lot of that does have to do with power. So there's been this interesting sort of like collective karmic theme that's been moving through the world lately, wherein there are lots of lessons related to power coming forward. So you could see this maybe on the world stage, where we're seeing the power of like old top-down authority models against or clashing with the desire or the consciousness of we want grassroots up power. We want, in other words, power and equality and fairness and justice for all of the people. We want the power of the people. We don't want top down. We want what's in the best interest of everyone, and for there to be a little bit more of a balance there, right? So we're seeing this clashing energy all over the place on the world stage with that, and some people seeing that in their own lives as well. Shifts of power, where they're kind of stepping out of victimization or stepping out of feeling overpowered by an external source, or giving their power away to an external source or a self-concept that might be disempowering, and being guided to take your power back, which again is all about realigning with the power of the heart, like we were talking about and the angels were sharing with us a moment ago. And with that power of the heart, it gives us the ability again to just create the groundwork to start building our baseline of some greater peace, some greater well-being, some greater opportunity and potential for there to be thriving on this planet, to spread that energy of thriving out. So 2025 so far looks like a purge year. It looks like a big transformation type of year, but there are at the same time some stabilizing energies coming in too, which feel to me, whenever I kind of tune into this global energy stuff, it feels like there's going to be some good, there's going to be some positive, nurturing things that we manifest that year. We just may see a lot of releasing that we may have to face at that time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you were talking about the world stage, but there's also this huge spotlight now on the United States. You mentioned in one of your videos that it's going through its Pluto return, and that is also signifying a lot of transformation. What else can we know about in terms of why there's being such a light shed on this specific country and how it's impacting, the world at large as well through these energies that it's moving through?
Yes. So I believe it's around every 200 years or so that a country, from the moment of its birth, you could say its conception, it will go through a Pluto return like this. And that's a planet that can symbolize death, transformation, and rebirth. So it's about returning back to the values that birthed that country in the first place, and that gave way to the country in the first place, and reevaluating them, seeing, do these things still line up with who we are today? Are they still relevant? Do we still care about these things? Do these things still matter? Are there things that we need to add? Are there better values that we need to become aware of? And there is a lot of, actually, interestingly, karmic purging that goes on during a Pluto return cycle, which can last many years, by the way, a Pluto return cycle for a country. So, for example, if we think of when the United States was first conceived, we had this beautiful document, the Constitution, I think, was a beautiful document with all these beautiful ideas, of the rights of a human being. And they said freedom and justice for all. But people still owned slaves at that time. So literally they're saying
with
freedom
liberty
and
justice for all.
Yeah. Yes. And at the same time, there was this hypocrisy, right? So when a Pluto return happens, it's sort of like, that's just one example of the types of things that we have to look at. We have to look at, like, if you built your foundation with rotten timber, you're going to have to dig down, remove the rot, and replace it with something strong and new and foundational that will hold up this institution for the future. So I think that over the last several years, since we've already been in this Pluto return, and again, we're still in it right now, we've seen a lot of that sort of like karmic digging, where there's just been so much conversation regarding what are the social values, of this country, like what's going on here. And it's very interesting too. The one other alignment in a planetary sense that I think is kind of interesting too, is that while we're wrapping up with the United States Pluto return, at the same time, we have Pluto moving from Capricorn into Aquarius. So when Pluto moved into Capricorn, this was like around the 2008 economic crash that occurred. So, Pluto, again, death, transformation, rebirth, and Capricorn really likes to rule the energies of like big institutions like economies and banks and, things like that. So it created this like breakdown, this clash, this breakdown of a lot of these old things. Capricorn energies also really kind of like highlight top down power and authority as well. So again, a lot of that has been like on its way through a breakdown, through a review, we could say. And as that shifts, as the United States finishes up its, starts to get towards the end of finishing up its Pluto return, we're going to see Pluto turn into Aquarius, which is a sign that really is about liberty and justice for all. Aquarius is an energy that kind of symbolizes like this social energy that loves to take care of the needs of every individual equally. And it is also, interestingly, an energy that is super connected to technology. It symbolizes like technology of the mind. It symbolizes travel by air. Big technological leaps typically occur when you see Pluto going into Aquarius, like the Industrial Revolution occurred when that happened. So if that changed the world that much, 200 some years ago, then how much are we about to change right now that we're about to head into that again? So it really is about a ripple effect, and that we've got this particular country kind of undergoing a lot of change. It will likely create a ripple effect where we see, sort of change that can create some trends, economically and so forth around the world. We'll have to see how it all, sort of like pans itself out over time. But I just find it very, very interesting to see so many of these big changes occurring while we're getting this spiritual guidance that says, well, the world is going through a karmic purge right now. All of us all around the world are collectively kind of growing and purging out this old stuff, healing stuff. And we're taking this really important step right now into a new way. So we're in a very exciting time to be alive, in my opinion, because we're in the middle of it right now. And we're watching what might be history unfolding right now in front of our eyes.
Yeah, it's almost like that Declaration of Independence was a little bit ahead of its time and exactly placed for the time that we're living in right now.
Yes.
As also we're moving into the Aquarian age, not only just the Pluto sign is shifting for the US, we are stepping into the age of Aquarius. What else could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I think that's so exciting too, because when we think of just the idea of an overarching Aquarian age, it's just like what we were talking about in terms of unity consciousness. So if Aquarius is a consciousness that doesn't just think like me first, self, ego first, it naturally is an energy that is the consciousness of the whole. What is good for absolutely everyone is good for me. There's this consciousness of union that comes with it. And then again, from that union, interestingly, it also takes us into this leading edge, cutting edge, innovative, sort of like bloom around our technologies and our way of life as well. So to see that going on all at the same time, this shift into union, it seems to reflect that, gosh, this idea of our shifting or taking at least a step towards a new earth right now, we're seeing it echoed across the board. We're seeing it echoed in so many different areas and in so many different ways, which is why I do find astrology so exciting. Again, not like the best astrologer or anything like that, but I know enough about it to go, oh, wow, that's incredible. And it's totally lined up with everything that I've received from the angels about this time that we live in right now too. So just exciting times to be in.
I wouldn't underestimate yourself with the astrology knowledge. You've been dropping those bombs the whole episode. I had a question that might shift the gears for a moment, but I'm really interested to know, what have you discovered about the nature of reality as you've journeyed through the shamanic realm?
Ooh, I love that. So I would say the number one takeaway that I found to be the most maybe valuable in doing shamanic journey work is that our consciousness is an incredibly creative and powerful force. That's the biggest takeaway that I've experienced from it, because when you do shamanic journeys, basically you're traveling through your own consciousness down into the spirit world, which from the understanding that I've learned, with the help of my angels and guides, the spirit world is synonymous with the collective mind. So we talk about how we are all one, united consciousness, right? That one united mind is the spirit world. Like, we can go into the plane of consciousness wherein we all share a conscious mental space together. It's also a spiritual space, and it is the spirit world. And when you go into the spirit world, everything's a little bit different, because what you conceptualize or what you think, you can create instantaneously. We find that we are these powerful, powerful, powerful creators of reality. So you find it's almost like, wow, everything is consciousness, because consciousness is the program that dictates what we experience in physical reality too. So to do shamanic journeying work, it's like you're getting in touch with that idea of what the power of consciousness really is, and seeing how infinite it really is, how unlimited it is, how amazing it really is.
After your first shamanic journey, what happened to your third eye that opened something up for you?
That's a great question. So my first experience with a shamanic journey was actually really unexpected. I thought that I was going to a Kundalini yoga class. I saw a flyer for Kundalini yoga at this address at a specific time. I showed up, and there was no Kundalini yoga class. It was a shamanic journey group. And they told me, not only, have we never made a flyer for our group, but there's no Kundalini yoga group that meets here. We've been meeting here at the same time in the same place for 15 years, and there's no Kundalini yoga class. So we don't know how you got here, but Spirit clearly wanted you to be here. And I said, okay, I'm here. So I did my first shamanic journey. And it was a shamanic journey into a part of the spirit world known as the lower realm, where essentially you're moving into the part of the spirit world that is connected to Mother Earth, to the spirits of nature, and just sort of walking through the realm of her conscious plane, her spiritual plane, her spiritual body. Really beautiful place to be. And during that journey, it was amazing, because it was almost like I was watching a movie, in my third eye, while living in the movie at the same time. There was a very interesting perspective that I had, and it was beautiful. I saw forest and ocean, and I was swimming, and so many different amazing things happened. There was also this beautiful light that came through at one point during that first journey, and it created a double helix golden spiral. And I was, at this point in the journey, I was swimming in the ocean, and it came around my spine, and I was sort of swimming and moving through it. And it felt like it was charging something in my spine, changing or moving something along that chakra column, that chakra ladder along my spine. So it was very interesting, because after doing that first shamanic journey, my third eye had already started to open up a little bit before then. I'd already had like an angel encounter or two. I had already started learning about, meditating. But after shamanic journeying, it was like this bloom. It was like this powerful blasting open of my third eye, where I found that I could get in touch with this really, really rich inner visual plane and directly communicate with spiritual guides, see, touch, feel, and connect with energies more powerfully. And then even outside of the journey state, I was receiving more spiritual connections. So I would have really powerful dreams, really powerful signs and synchronicities that all just amplified as a result of doing that particular practice, because it opened up so much for me at that third eye level.
And when we look at other cultures throughout the world, you said this is one of the most ancient practices and rituals, is to go into these shamanic spaces. you said that the most common way to access the state of trance, the trance that they go into, is through sound. And I find it really interesting that you grew up as a trained opera singer. You went to, a master's program specifically for vocal performance. What have you learned about our voice in specific when it connects to these other realms in spirit that we can utilize to access them more easily?
Yes. Well, oh my goodness. I see so many parallels, interestingly, between the voice and connecting with our spiritual power, our spiritual essence. And I'm so grateful, so grateful that that's where life led me down. My path was first through music and through the voice and through singing. And, that became actually a really great way to understand a lot of the, spiritual energy work that I began to work with, because there are a few similarities. Like, for example, one of the things, that really stood out in my training that I received as a vocalist, as a singer, is that, you don't want to force it. You don't want to force your sound to come out. You want to have strength and breath support. You want to have the discipline of okay, the core of my body is open and my diaphragm is lowering. So I'm holding support around my lungs and I can really control the flow of the breath. We've got this space, this container, our divine masculine side, by the way. We have this really strong container, but then from there, singing is supposed to be very effortless. We don't want to have a lot of locked up muscular movement around the upper part of our body, our throat, our shoulders, our jaw, or anything like that. We want this ease and this flow and this allowing to move through us. So for me, learning music, learning to be a singer was this perfect training to learn the synergy of a harmonized divine masculine side with divine feminine side, that powerful container is effortlessly allowing this beautiful tone, the sound, to come through you. And that can create this great result, this beautiful result that you're looking for. I find that that's the same when it comes to channeling spiritually, actually. We don't want to think about it too much or force it too much or overanalyze or try to make it happen. We're focusing so hard in our head. We're up in our head. We're trying to make it happen. Instead, it's okay, well, we want a general sense of being able to quiet the mind. Again, that's the divine masculine side. It can be good if you have a little bit of skillfulness around, for example, meditating for stillness so that you can discipline your mind to be still and to be open when you want it to be. But then from there, once you have that container set, you want this effortless allowing, this effortless turning on of the faucet and this flow to come forward. So that's just one example, but of the many ways where I've found that it's such a blessing that music and spiritual practice or spiritual skill, musical skill is really, really, really aligned. And I always like to say too that music is one of God's most profound languages. It is a language far better at expressing divine truth, in my opinion, sometimes than human words are, because words, I can say them and then you're interpreting them in your head, right? So it's you can have a different idea of what a certain word means and I can have a different idea of what it means. And then there's just sort of this, we're connected, right? But there's this language has almost a little bit of a degree of separation, whereas music, you get the meaning, you get the feeling right away. It's this pure vibration that purely accesses your consciousness and then changes your consciousness instantaneously into whatever vibrational state it is in. Your consciousness merges with music right away, and it's universally moving. You don't even have to speak the same language or be from the same time to hear a piece of music and know, oh, it sounds beautiful, or oh, wow, it sounds so sad, or I hear the longing in this, or I hear the joy or the sweetness in this, or whatever it is. It's this universal, powerful language, and that doesn't even begin to talk about the structure of music too. So if you think about the actual mathematic structure of music theory, it's essentially describing harmony that's already out there in the universe. Music and math both, to me, or even geometry, these other different, kind of things, or physics even, it's they're discovering an expression of God or a language of God that already exists out here in nature. We're just coming up with a system to try to wrap our mind around this incredible thing that we can use to then create amazing, amazing things. So yeah, as you can tell, quite passionate about music. And there are a lot to me of connections between music and spirituality.
Yeah, I love the link that you made to channeling. And I know that when you were around 15, you had your first channeling experience and then you shut it down. Knowing what you know now, how would you have gone about that in a different way to just keep allowing that gift to unfold to its highest degree possible?
Yes. So what would have been really ideal is to have had a sense of groundedness, structure, protection, and knowing what was really going on and how to stay in a very grounded and attuned state for that channeling. The third eye, and this is one of the things that Archangel Michael has helped me really understand since that time. It's like a radio antenna. So you can tune it into whatever channel that you want. You know, you can turn on a radio and tune it to the classical music station. You can tune it to the news. You can tune it to the heavy metal station, the country music station. You can tune it wherever you want and it will pick up on those frequencies. When I was 15 and I had my first experience of channeling, I didn't know what I was tuning into at all. And it was just overwhelming and scary. And it was sort of like the sense you get when you turn on like an old car radio. Maybe it's on like the AM station. You've got this fuzzy static that's coming through. And in one moment you're getting a little blurb of sound from one channel. And then the next you're picking up on a little piece of a song. And it's just too much. It's like, I'm not hearing anything cohesive. I'm getting something that's, again, kind of overwhelming. I don't know what frequency, what vibe I'm tuning into, but it doesn't feel like a good one. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm shutting it down. I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't even want to believe in this right now. This is not going to be my thing. And it wasn't until I was really introduced to the idea of directly calling on angels and working with angels that changed for me, because in calling on the angels, that was my first time of really tuning my third eye radio station to light and love, to angels, to higher beings of light and wisdom, which if you're going to channel, you might as well tune it to the highest possible frequency and pick up on consciousness that's going to be of use to you, that's going to be supportive to you, that's going to be healing and nurturing for you, and not just tuning into any old energy for the sake of it. Because I think it can be a little overwhelming if you let it be. And it was at that time, but I'm glad to have learned.
Now, is that switching of the radio stations caused just by your intention, or is there a specific guidelines that you can tune to these specific stations to receive that frequency?
Oh my gosh, I love this question, because first off, it is about intention. It really does boil down to intention and free will choice. It kind of really parallels for me what I learned in my first shamanic journey, which was like, wow, consciousness is really powerful. It creates reality instantaneously. And this is very, very true of spiritual channeling, of tuning your third eye. Your intention will really, really program or dictate what it is that you're going to pick up on. Now, for some people, because this was my case at the time, you can say, oh, I just want to tune into the good stuff, right? But there can be a part of you that's still attached to maybe not so good things. And so you can open up your third eye and then still pick up on some negative things. So in my case, I was very also attuned to other people, and especially in a way that was a little bit like codependent, almost like, okay, I'm scanning the horizon, looking for the person that might be in pain or might be a threat or might, kind of be in this unpredictable, chaotic state. And I'm going to pick up on their energy and absorb it like a sponge, because I want to be able to predict their energy or to move and heal and fix them so that I feel safer, so that I feel better. That is so classic ego and was a pattern that I needed to learn how to heal. But that was key for me to learn how to really strongly retune my third eye purely to light and love, purely to angels, purely to wisdom, was to make sure that I wasn't unconsciously in any other part of my consciousness holding a strong willfulness or a strong attachment to the idea of, oh, I also need to tune into these other things. I need to use my third eye to read people who are problematic or who might be in a not so great state so that I can, try to fix it or make myself protected from it. Right. So it just depends on the person. But I think that it can be really good to regularly actually call on the angels for help to make sure that we're keeping our third eye really clear and tuned, because they'll like with me, they'll work with you every single step of the way until you have learned all the lessons that you need to learn. You've undergone all the healing that you need to undergo so that you can make sure that your third eye is going to now be really, really purely connected to only the highest of energies. And Archangel Michael, honestly, our favorite guide, he is the number one angel to call on for this, because he's the angel of protection. He's the angel whose divine purpose it is to eradicate all fear from the planet. Big job, big, powerful being of light to help fulfill that job. And he helps us do that within ourselves first. So if we're here to, if we want to channel, if we're here to fulfill a purpose related to that, then it's helpful for us also to do self-healing at the same time, so that we can make sure that our consciousness doesn't have any, attachments, we could say, that are making it a little bit more difficult to hear that clear truth that's coming through, to tune in purely to that truth.
You mentioned Archangel Michael. Are you finding any specific angel now that you're working more with because of the energies of the current times that is just coming up more frequently for you? Is it Michael? Is it another one? Which ones are you working with the most right now?
I think me and Archangel Michael will probably always be really good friends. I hope that he'll be one of my main guides for my whole life. So he's always there. I always feel a connection to Archangel Michael. And definitely as we kind of address, and as I work with people who are really looking at this idea of shifting to new consciousness and new earth, I have found that Archangel Metatron comes forward quite a lot. Archangel Metatron is an angel of higher consciousness who's really, really good at guiding human consciousness through an ascension type of process, or a process wherein we might work to shed what isn't in alignment with moving into a consciousness of love, and learn how to hold that consciousness of love better, not only in terms of what we can conceptualize or hold in our mind and our mental plane, but even helping us through the physical changes and the light body changes that go along with this as well, because he's really good at helping us to create like these beautiful geometric structures of light and energy that go around our spiritual energy body, which help us to hold space for the new. So definitely Michael and Metatron. I feel like from there I work equally with a lot of different archangels that I like to call upon regularly. There are a few ascended masters that I like to call on regularly as well. Particularly I love working with Mother Mary. And yeah, they all seem to have their own little piece to share with me, and the united theme of it always seems to be about what steps can we take to really support moving into that consciousness of love.
Mother Mary came to you when you were 2 years old, right?
Yes, so I've been told. So that's like just like an interesting story. So my mom told me that story. Usually we don't have like a memory of like what was going on when we were 2. But she said that she woke me up one morning and I was talking about, oh, I saw Mary. Oh my goodness, I saw Mary. And I was very, very happy about it. And she says, your Aunt Mary? Because I have an aunt named Mary. And I said, no, Mother Mary, like Mother Mary.
Mother Mary.
Yes. And so I told her that she was just with me. We were together, and she said that all I expressed was that I was very, very happy about it. And I have to say, well, first off, my mom said it's not like they were teaching me religion at that age or taking me, all that off into like a church or anything like that, where I would have or at least as far as she knew, where I would have gotten that concept. She didn't know that I knew who that was. But yeah, it's just interesting because my whole life I have felt really connected to her as a guide, and I still call on her to this day as a main resource for strength and support and healing and strengthening my faith when I need it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, me too. I think we share the same affinity to the same guides.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Sarah, we end every show with a segment called The Final Trio. Before that, I would love to send people to wherever you feel called to invite them to work with you, to get to know more of your work, anything that you have going on right now. Where would you send people to connect with you?
Well, definitely check me out on YouTube. I share there as often as I can, usually a few videos a month with energy updates and things like that. And then also, if you want to work with me personally, you can check out ascensionwithsarah.com and just learn a little bit more about what it's like to work with me on your ascension path and in opening up your own spiritual gifts to be able to channel the angels.
And as always, all of that information will be in the show notes with the links so you can go directly to work with Sarah. For the final trio, the first two questions are personalized to the guest, and then the last one we ask at the end of every show. So the first one is, I know that you have a podcast called Through the Eyes of the Angels. If we could look through the eyes of the angels right now and how they would see the humanity and how they are seeing our current phase of evolution, how would they see us? How would they see the world?
With great love and with great, great compassion. They see us going through the growing phases that we experience, the ups and downs of our growing pains. But they do want us to know that through every one of those growing pains, they love us unconditionally, accept us, and hold great, great, great compassion around us. In the same way that you would compassionately love and simply support and hold space around the little child that's learning how to walk for the first time. You know, if they fall and stumble, you wouldn't blame them or judge them. You would hold them and you would support them, and you would continue to joyfully anticipate their development and their growth. And the angels see humanity with love that is sort of like that. It's just absolutely endless, and they are endlessly devoted to us.
Maybe we could start seeing ourselves in the same way as well.
Yes. I think that that's probably the goal.
For sure. The second question I have for you is, we open up talking about karma, which I wasn't expecting to go that route. But the question I had for you is, what karmic debt is humanity letting go of right now and clearing the slate for the times to come?
One of the biggest pieces of karmic debt we're learning to let go of now is lack consciousness. So specifically looking in at the idea when we're talking about power over versus hopefully transitioning into power with, there is lack consciousness that is connected to this idea of power over, wherein if you believe that you're separate from your source, you also believe that you lack what you need. And so that sense of lack, that's what creates a lot of competitiveness, overconsumption, the things that kind of can lead way to suffering in this world. So one of the transitions that we're making, one of the big ones that we're being pointed towards right now, is a long-term shift out of lack consciousness, where we're being guided to heal lack consciousness and come to the spiritual realization that in truth, we are one with infinite abundance, because we are one with the divine creator source, and we have the ability to experience infinite abundance now.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you for that. The last question we ask at the end of every show, we call it the time capsule question. And it requires us to travel out a little bit into the future, around 10 to 15 years. I chose out that time frame because I believe that's going to be a time in history where the young generations of today are stepping more into leadership positions around the world. And just like any great leader, they've had great mentors, great resources, great tools, great examples to follow, great references. And you were given the opportunity to leave behind a time capsule for these leaders that they would then open down the line in 10, 15, 20 years. When they open your time capsule, they will be equipped with the necessary tools, wisdom, whatever you want to include in there that would allow them to lead in the best way possible toward this new earth. It doesn't have to be necessarily physical, what you include in the time capsule. It could be a message, a frequency, it could be a book list, it could be a song, it could be a musical note, whatever, whatever you want to put in there. It goes beyond just the physical and, using your full potential of the imagination. What would you leave behind in a time capsule for the future leaders?
I love this question. And since we were just talking about music a little bit ago, I would have to say it would be a song. And my intention would probably be just to put a song into the time capsule that very, very simply communicated the message to have faith, to know that everything's going to be okay, and that we are love. And just if I could encapsulate the vibration of that message into music that helps open up the heart, that would be my choice of what to put in it.
Wow. As you were saying that, I just saw like a flash of like light appear to my left, and I've never had that before. So that's why I looked. I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh.
That was crazy. Recorded live on the podcast.
Wow. Thank you, angels.
You activated something there. Thank you, angels. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah, for being so committed to your journey, for sharing so fully your heart and being vulnerable in this conversation. I can't wait to do this again and continue the conversations. I have a feeling that we're going to continue this beautiful friendship and collaboration, and I can't wait to see what we weave next.
Oh, thank you so much, Emilio. It's been such an honor to be with you here in this conversation. So all of my gratitude to you. Thank you.